Each day, more and more people are listening to music on Spotify, and that's also true for podcasts. Next time you're on the Spotify app, make sure to follow Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. Enjoy listening to Lou, his incredible guests, and all of the amazing episodes. Listen, follow, and share. Thrive Loud on Spotify.
Well, this is not a boat accident. It wasn't any propeller, it wasn't any coral reef, and it wasn't Jack the Ripper. It was Lou Diamond.
A third of the people love you, a third don't care about you, and a third hate you. So you concentrate on the third that love you and you go for it.
I think the greatest Achilles heel for leaders is they don't give themselves time to think.
So my journey is one of those, like there are a lot of detours, there's a lot of going off on the side roads.
Thrive Out listeners, you're in for a treat. We're here with Jamal Mashburn,
Jesse Itzler,
the John Maxwell,
Jackie the Joke Man Martling,
New York Rangers great Mike Richter,
Lisa Lampanelli,
Mary Carrillo.
Oh, how nice.
I'm actually going through the practice of being an entrepreneur.
Pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and thrive loud.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
I love it.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond, and today on Thrive Loud, we have the CEO and co-founder of Navis, one of the leading third-party distributors of cannabis products in California, shipping nearly 100 million of top-tier wholesale products. He is an expert in building B2B enterprise software companies and brings his experience to help scale the cannabis industry operationally and compliantly. Thrive Loud listeners, Vince, Ning. Vince, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on the show, Lou. It's a pleasure to be here and excited to chat with you.
So we have had, in fact, we had a cannabis week a couple of years ago, right around mid-April for some reason. I can't imagine why. And this industry has definitely had its unique ups and downs as the world tries to figure out how it can intermingle in this world that we live in. So what I would love to do is for you to start off by sharing with the listeners a little bit about, I guess, how Nabis came to be and what you guys specialize in. And from there, we'll take off. Sound like a plan?
Sure, yeah. My name's Vince. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Nabis. I started this company about 3 years ago. My background comes from more of the traditional Silicon Valley tech space. And, with my skill set as a software engineer before, as an entrepreneur before, marrying those two interests and abilities, wanted to find a way to help scale the cannabis industry. Around 3 years ago, it was mid-2017, and recreational cannabis had just been legalized, and the bill had just been passed in California to go live January 1st, 2018. And, at that point, I, had this conversation with one of my best friends from home and, who is now my co-founder and partner in this company. And we were just talking about ways that we could leverage, our backgrounds to help scale the industry. And I think one of the fundamental things that we boiled down to is this thesis around how, everyone loves cannabis. There's going to be amazing consumer demand growth for this industry. And so that wasn't really the problem that needed to be solved in this space. It was really, with all this consumer demand, how do we continue to satiate that and continue to scale the supply chain? After all, cannabis is this physical, tangible good that needs to be shipped back and forth. And so, our brains led to, how do we help scale the supply chain as a whole? And, when we first got into this industry, aside from just a personal passion for the product, we started peeling our personal networks to find friends who were working in the industry, one of whom owned a pretty major pre-roll brand that sold statewide in California. And, knowing that it was just crawling out of the medical market and the collective space, we, wanted to just meet as many people as we could and pick as many people's brains as possible. And, that led us to becoming delivery drivers for our friend's company to ship out his products across the state of California, not knowing that would be the business of today. And, originally, we just got paid for our time and for our gas money. And we would be driving down from Oakland down to San Diego, up to Humboldt on a weekly basis. And, for us, it was just a lot of fun to get to see the better part of California as East Coasters go, and beyond that, also just to meet as many people as possible in the industry, and everyone from cultivators to manufacturers, down to, your retailers and end consumers. And so throughout that process, we just kept getting introduced to more and more people who needed help with shipping. And we, quickly found out that, large 3PL, or rather third-party logistics companies, were basically unable to operate within this specific vertical.
And I want to dive there first. Explain why they're not able to ship it regularly. Why can't I just get into a car and just go take the stuff down? What's required, I guess, from a compliance point of view?
Yeah, that's a great question. The cannabis is a federally illegal Schedule I substance. And because of that, a lot of the major interstate logistics companies can't operate in this space. And to answer your question about the requirements, you need specifically in California, you need a Type 11 distribution license in order to ship products between any other licensed entity and another one. So anytime you move product from point A to point B, you need a licensed distributor to do it. So there's two ways. One is you can get your own distribution license, or find someone who has their distribution license that can offer third-party distribution services. The alternative was, back in the day before we existed, you would try to ship with FedEx or DHL, as you might think would work in any other space. And one of three packages would probably get lost. And, cannabis is a very highly valuable product. And so to lose that on a, per unit basis is quite expensive. And so, that's what led us to starting up this distribution business to become basically the FedEx of the cannabis industry as we're known for today.
So I have more questions here because it is pretty cool. And I love the niche that you've picked in the business. I want to talk about actually getting paid, because one of the previous guests we had on the program had actually come up with payment challenges that happen in the cannabis industry, because anytime you're using a credit card or something that requires wires, you're dealing with federal type of transactions, and you're not allowed to do that interstate piece. So how do you get paid for your services, and how do you keep it in state, I would guess, is the challenge you have to deal with.
Yeah. So, keeping it in state is on the physical trucking level side of things and distribution, it's not that difficult. We have GPS trackers on our vehicles. We make sure our drivers don't cross state lines. We have guidelines and internal SOPs to make sure that doesn't happen. On the payment side of things, it's definitely a bit trickier, and it's still not quite a solved problem yet. As you mentioned a second ago, the financial system is a federal system. Any bank that requires any sort of commercial bank that you might find reasonable to work with, that has statewide scale or even national scale, has to operate under FDIC regulations in order to be FDIC insured. And so that poses many major challenges where banks see this as a huge risk. And cannabis, as big of an industry as it is today, $3 billion just in California alone, close to $10 billion in the US. It's still, a bite size compared to what major banks might be working with in other sectors and industries, for instance, in tech or financial services or what have you. And so it's still not large enough of a market where, they're willing to just, risk it all just to get into this industry at this very early stage. And so, I don't know if you've read this book called The Innovator's Dilemma, but I think this is a perfect example of that, where, major businesses won't be touching the cannabis space for a long time until it presents, $100 billion market opportunity. And at that point, small businesses like ours and startups can continue to thrive and succeed, and eventually either be bought or, just be a big enough business to stand on its own. And so that's the point we're at today. And as far as getting paid, I would say about 60% of the cannabis industry still operates in cash. And that increases compliance costs, security costs, logistics costs for that sort of cash transport side of the business. And it all factors into the cost of distribution. So when you're talking about, trying to do self-distribution as a brand, those things are just near impossible if you're not only trying to start a brand and build your identity across the space, but also working out the hairiness of logistics and operations. And so hence why a lot of people like to use third-party logistics companies, because A, it's cheaper, and B, it's almost like they're offloading their risk profile towards a third-party distributor like ourselves that has economies of scale, that thinks about these challenges day in and day out.
Yeah. Wait, Vince, I'm jumping in again.
Yeah.
Talk to me about other states, and are you setting up in other states across the country today?
Currently, no. California presents a large enough opportunity for us that we're certainly eyeing other states, seeing how the regulatory landscape progresses. But currently, California just holds such a stronghold in the U.S. as the largest cannabis market under a singular entity, which is the Bureau of Cannabis Control. And by that fact, it's arguably the largest cannabis market under a single entity in the world. And so, owning the state of California's market share is such a critical component to long-term success that, we generally err on the side of making sure that we do a great job here before expanding elsewhere.
It's like you're the In-N-Out burger of the delivery system. You guys are keeping all the good stuff in state, not making it difficult for other people to get to.
Yep.
So let's talk about, I want to talk about the hurdles you have in running a shipping company, because obviously, look, you ran software challenges before, and now you're dealing with physical trucks. You have to deal with amortization. You got to deal with vehicles and maintenance costs and drivers and maybe even unions. I don't know if that's the case or by what you're dealing with. Talk about some of the hurdles that you as a leader face in running this business.
Yeah, well, first I'll mention that it's not cheap. I think contrary to, your typical software business and the business model there, you do have to consider so many more complex variables to your financials. Namely the vehicles, the warehouses, all the additional labor and operational headcount costs, and all the insurance that you need to get for the products that you're handling that, for others, and also the cash fees, and cost to managing cash. So, the major hurdles, I think, gosh, I don't really know where to start. It's, I think,
what's the biggest headache that you're facing today? How about that? The biggest issue on your plate that you're challenged with?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that we're facing today is around warehouse storage space. With respect to shipping and logistics in the cannabis space, like I mentioned earlier, you need a license for your property and you need a license to do your business. Because of that, landlords, there's a couple of different frictions to finding suitable turnkey warehouse space that will help you grow your distribution business. Because ultimately that is, your spatial constraint is one of the largest constraints of obviously a physical distribution business, contrary to, running just a pure software business where you can just click a button, auto scale your, servers on AWS, and there you have it. You just can all of a sudden supply a larger volume of users and compute processes. It's different in the physical world where you have to negotiate with landlords, you have to negotiate with the city and the state on tax rates, on the licensing, and not to mention there's just a time lag to getting all those things up. It's not so much click a button and you get this extra space. And so there's a lot more planning that goes into, just running, growing, and operating, a physical business like this, that makes it a bit challenging. And just to go into a bit more detail here, when we're looking for a warehouse space, there's very nuanced requirements for specifically shipping cannabis products. You have to consider the temperature control. You have to consider the location so that, it's not too far from good enough talent for your operational team. You have to figure out whether it's in a zoning area that even allows for cannabis licensing. And on top of that, you have to figure out, what the municipal regulations are and how that's going to affect your bottom line from a, municipal gross receipts tax basis. And those are sort of things. And finally, you also have to work with your landlord. Your landlord might just not be cool with you running a cannabis business in his property, or his or her property. And so those are all the constraining factors that are involved. And finally, price. So,
right.
There's all those considerations before diving headfirst into a project where we go and expand our infrastructural capacity. And it is one of those things you need to take very careful consideration, because it's hard to reverse as well.
Vince, I got a couple of questions and then we'll get to some fun stuff here. Not that we're having fun. We're having fun the whole time. Security. To your point, you're driving down the road. I'm looking behind you right now on the image behind you, and I see your logo on a truck. So people know that your truck is delivering what they know what's in it. And they also know that it's a cash business. Talk about the risks that maybe has that been a problem? Any type of issues or crime or theft around your vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, knock on wood, luckily nothing major has happened to us. There's been a few scares, but we've heard stories with other distributors or even anyone else working in this space in general, on and off the road, that have been hit. Particularly lately due to civil unrest. A lot of cannabis businesses who were struggling to get up and going already, where a lot of them were hit pretty severely, and it's going to be tough to come back from that in a lot of instances. And for us, contrary to the picture in the background that I have here, we don't, all of our vehicles are actually unmarked.
Okay.
The one here is more for marketing purposes, just for the picture on Zoom. But apart from that, all of our vehicles are, no one really knows what we have in there. It just looks like any old, white cargo van that can ship, anything from cannabis products to beds or food or whatever have you. You have to think pretty creatively though in order to avoid and mitigate some of the security risks though. We've considered putting a couple ladders and some plumbing tools on the side of the vehicle to make it look like a maintenance vehicle. We change it.
You could paint it if you really wanted to get creative. You can make it like the mystery machine from Scooby-Doo, and then people wouldn't know what it is either, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a little creative tweaks like that can help really reduce your security risk. Apart from that, there's we change up our routing. We make sure that we have experienced drivers who have done deliveries on those specific routes before to know the ins and outs of the road. They're typically, we instruct them to never really get gas on the road, always come back before they do that. So even if it might be cheaper to get gas in more rural areas, sometimes it ends up in the long run being cheaper, not just on gas, but also on security.
Vince, I've driven my car in California. There is no such thing as cheap gas.
Yeah. So those are just a couple of the considerations that we take into serious consideration when we send our drivers out from a security.
Vince, one last question around the operations of this. Do the laws have it as such that you're solely distributing cannabis, or does it afford you the opportunity, because of the uniqueness of what you're delivering, to transport other things, fruits, vegetables, other vegetation, I guess, whatever, along with it as ways to supplement costs or other operations like that?
Yeah, no, that's actually a really astute question. Yes, cannabis is actually, you can only ship it with other cannabis products.
Got it.
And it's mainly because it's a Schedule I substance, a controlled substance. And similarly, you can think of pharmaceuticals or, things like alcohol or any scheduled substance. You need your own truck, and that's by regulation. Our trucks have to be specifically outfitted as well with proper caging, GPS, safe alarm system, the whole 9 yards, in order to be able to ship cannabis products. We've thought about, I think the whole industry would like to be able to bundle more and other types of products into it to get that economies of scale and save on some of the unit shipping costs. But particularly for food and beverage, the state just doesn't want, cross contamination between, different substance types. So,
and then again, it might work to your advantage in that you become the expert in that particular space, and that's the only thing that you can deliver, and you're able to charge the premium on top of that. So that's
right. Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot more nuance to it too than just shipping from point A to point B. From a compliance standpoint, distributors are seen as the gatekeepers for products before they enter the retail space, meaning that we handle arranging for a testing lab to come in to check out quarantine product and sample them for, to run a series of 7 different state mandated tests. And so that's not something that a typical logistics company would handle. And apart from that, we also handle tax collections for the state and remitting it to them as well. So, we handle deliveries, we handle testing, we handle collections of payments as well. And so, there's a lot more that's involved in doing cannabis distribution than just, third-party logistics.
Vince, would you have ever thought that this is the business that you would be in?
I can't say that I never thought it, but it is. I never thought it would come so soon in my career. I'm transparently, I'm 27, and I thought cannabis would be legalized at some point in my lifetime, but I never thought it would come so soon. And to see that happen is really exciting because as a 27-year-old, you get to build up an entire infrastructure of a supply chain from the ground up where there's no incumbents. And you really get to take a lot of the, modern tools and technologies and software that, we have the skills to be able to do and apply it towards this. When you think of logistics companies in other verticals, you think of, very traditional businesses, very old school ways of doing things, hard to break in. And here it's just a total greenfield opportunity where you get to kind of create your own vision for what you want to build in this space.
That's great. Vince, as a leader of a company and obviously a growing industry, as you just said, with completely greenfields, it's so unique and such a niche. It's a great opportunity. I'm sure it's one of those things that is exciting. And most days you're probably like kicking yourself going, wow, this is just awesome. Mm-hmm. However, we also have days where we're not quite kicking on all cylinders, and issues and stresses and all the nuances of our business, are kind of keeping us off our A game. Vince, when you have trouble thriving, who or what practice do you seek to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Oh man, that's a great question as well. I mean, I don't think there's a silver bullet to this. I think that, as an entrepreneur, you have to set yourself up for success. And, that comes with having different, almost like breaker circuits. When you have serious stress, you can call your family, you can call your friends, you can call your investors or mentors, whoever it is. I've gotten some great advice recently about getting an executive coach and a therapist from, other founders and entrepreneurs who've gone much farther than I have with their business. And so, I think it's making sure that you have enough of those, people lined up who can provide you at least that mental sanity during tough times. And as much as this business is very passion driven, I love what we do each and every day. Sometimes when the going does get tough, you're wondering why, what else you could be doing. Oftentimes when times get tough like that, I think the bottom line, like sort of last gear that kicks in for me is to get me out of bed is just, we have a team of 100 people now, and each one of them I know, and I know that they love working for this company. They're deeply loyal, and I just want to pay them that mutual respect as well. And so to know that everything that I do, even if it's not for myself, it's for the team, I think that goes a long way to just giving me that extra driver to write that one more email before the end of the day.
Vince, let's do the admin part of the show. Let people know where they can find you, websites, URLs, all that fun stuff. We will put it all on the show notes, social media, etc. But it always gets better engagement when they hear it from you.
Sure. Yeah. Where you can find us, you can always go to nabis.com, Nabis.com. You can check out what we do. We do distribution. We offer financial services, sales, marketing tools for cannabis businesses. So you can learn more about it there in detail. Also, we have an Instagram. The handle is GetNabis, so GetNabis. And you can also find us on LinkedIn and Facebook under Nabis. But yeah, those are pretty much where you can find us and learn more about our services.
Permission to go down Fun Street with you at the end of this interview here, Vince.
Sure.
Okay. First of all, share with the listeners your all-time favorite movie.
I love Ocean's 11. I think it's just a great, it's a fun movie, but I think it also, shows what, a team of sort of misfit people can do together to do something great. It's one of those movies I've watched as a kid so many times, and I loved every bit of it.
Makes you wonder, because we talked about the fact that you're trying to deconstruct what a white van looks like delivering, and you do that in the show. Makes me think, Vince, what's going on inside those vans?
That's right.
All right, so we're going to do kind of like a fun speed round here. I am going to ask you a quick question, and the first thing that comes to your mind that makes you feel good, motivates you, pumps you up, whatever it might kick with you, and we'll kick it from here. Ready?
Yep.
A song that pumps you up or you love to listen to.
Oh man, this is tough. Taylor Swift songs. That actually pumps me up all the time.
A favorite food that's not a dessert.
Favorite food that's not a dessert. I love Peking duck.
Favorite dessert.
Tiramisu.
An activity you wish you did more of.
Play tennis.
An activity you wish you did less of.
Sit on my chair.
We could get you a standing desk, Vince. If you could snap your fingers and go anywhere, where are you?
Tahiti.
I like it. Vince Ning, Nabis, an absolutely spectacular niche business, and I love people that take the new world of new products and new developments like cannabis, and you're bringing it with just, hey, people need to get it. And they need it shipped, and they got to deliver it, and you're keeping it small, manageable, growing in the biggest state where cannabis is growing. This is exciting stuff. I know our listeners are going to certainly look you up, and a bunch of people are probably going to say, how can we invest? So, we've had a great time having you on the program here, Vince. Hopefully you had some fun too.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again on the show, Lou, and talk soon.
You got it, man. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.